Hello YouTube, Romopar here.
And this is his wife, Wild Phoenix.
And this is our vodcast. Help, I married a nerd. Which, well, Phoenix was supposed to say. But
Help, I married a nerd.
okay, we got it there now. Better late than never. But yeah, we decided we wanted to do something fun, something together. We both watch movies and appreciate movies, but in entirely different ways.
I'm a movie fanatic. I love watching movies.
I happen to be somewhat of a science nerd myself. I tend to be pretty critical about movies.
You don't like to watch movies.
Well, yeah. I mean, occasionally I get my moments, but
it's very disappointing.
Yeah, I understand. But for me, the movies are very disappointing because, like I said, I'm a science nerd. I watch things and I'm just like, that's not how that works.
And you ruin it for me.
Yes, we've gotten into some really heated discussions.
I don't mind discussing the science behind it, but when I'm in the mood to just watch the movie for sheer entertainment purposes only, knowing that none of the science is real, let me enjoy it.
And I have kind of a hard time with it.
Yes, I know.
In fact, many times she's been, shall I say, dumb enough to ask me, can that really happen? And an hour later, she's like, will you shut up?
Dumb enough to ask you? I think I'm asking you reasonable scientific questions that I'm actually curious about.
And then I completely ruin your entire love of the movie.
But it doesn't make me dumb for asking.
Well, I didn't say, you were dumb. I just said that was kind of, never mind. It was supposed to be a joke.
You said the word dumb.
You're crying out loud. All right. So today's movie is Star Trek, the J.J. Abrams reboot. This is the first one. More than likely, we'll get to Into Darkness at some point. Unfortunately, that will mean I have to actually sit all the way through it, which is going to be difficult. But
you will, and you'll love it.
I didn't the last time. But we'll get to that movie later. Right now, this movie was released, 2008, right? 2008, 2009?
I don't know. I don't pay attention.
I don't remember exactly. I have to look at the box. But yeah, this is the first of the J.J. Abrams reboots. And I'm just going to say right off the bat, I was really not looking forward to this movie until I saw it, and then I loved it.
I was looking forward to it because I like the concept and I like the characters. And once I did see it, I was already kind of a little Trekkie. I used to watch Next Generation, and this turned me to full-on Trekkie. And I've probably watched this particular movie at least a dozen times.
Yeah, I think I've seen it almost as many times, if not more. I mean, I'm a Trekkie going back to the classic. I used to watch the classic reruns. My parents would sit around. I remember 7 p.m., like Saturday or Sunday night. I don't remember. It was KBHK, TV44. They played the reruns, and I was hooked right from the first episode I saw. All the way through Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise. They even watched that.
Now, you've watched a lot more of that, but as far as this particular movie is concerned, I've watched it a lot more than you have.
Yeah, this I think is the Star Trek for your, well, it's supposed to be the younger generation, but really you entered the fandom with this new generation, so I think you can kind of include yourself in that. And it was a great idea. I think it's an idea that's long past due. Star Trek, the original continuity, I mean, let's face facts, it ran its course. I think Paramount knew that. That's why they brought J.J. Abrams on board. J.J. knew that, but he also knew, being a huge Star Wars fan, what kinds of things that geek fans would expect from their fandom. And he catered to it perfectly while giving us a story that was entertaining. And as you'll find out at several points through the movie, hideously inaccurate scientifically, but you kind of get to the phrase, well, as I was watching this movie, this kind of phrase popped up several times. It's a new timeline, fuck it. I mean, there's several moments in the scene, and it's like, no, it's not continuity, and I just thought to myself, it's a new timeline, fuck it, and I just let it go.
Well, we know it's a new timeline, but I like that they, stuck to the original characters, but, like you said, updated them for a current generation so people could relate to them more, but they have the nuances of the original Star Trek crew that they're portraying.
They're very familiar. You will recognize Kirk. You will recognize McCoy very easily. You won't have to be told who they are. And that was really one of the most awesome things about this movie. It is Star Trek, as I think it follows the legacy perfectly. So, what we're going to do, we're going to hit play. The sound is down so that we can talk over it. You may hear it very faintly in the background, but we're basically just going to talk over throughout the movie. And we're going to point out some of our favorite scenes, talk about some of the things we like, maybe some of the things we didn't like, and I'm sure this is going to be, if it happens anything like when we normally sit around to watch this movie, probably very entertaining for all of you. So, sit back, relax. If you've got your DVD or your Netflix or everything queued up, hit play now.
Star Trek. Woo!
Star Trek begins. Hey! So here we get the PG-13 advisory.
Sci-fi action and violence and brief sexual contact. Sci-fi.
Contact? I read that as content.
Content? Oh, well.
And where's the brief, honestly, brief sexual content? That's, well, maybe we'll see it as we're watching the movie. Here we get the famous Paramount logo, the stars that have come flying in, and the amazing musical score begins.
Oh, yes.
The music just sucks you in. It's...
When I saw this in theaters, I had goosebumps. Watching the previews before I got to see the movie, it gave me goosebumps.
See, I wasn't impressed with the previews, but as soon as I heard this music and I saw the opening scene, holy crap, I was just, like, I had goosebumps. I mean, it blew me away. This is definitely a movie that just grabs you by the neck and says, "You will like me!" Alright, so past the bad robot logo, and here comes the USS Kelvin. This was, I'm not really sure why J.J. chose this particular entrance. I mean, he's spinning around the ship. It's kind of cool because it sort of gives you a sense of what it's like in space, where up is whatever direction your head is pointing. So you're looking at the ship at first, and you think you're right side up, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh wait, you're upside down as it flips over. And then you start to hear the radio content. One thing, they talk about a lightning storm in space, and someone says, that's not possible, but honestly, I don't think there's anything stopping a lightning storm in space, because lightning just forms, when there's a difference in positive and negative ions. And that can happen in a nebula. So I would imagine, if you get that same kind of difference, if you create that potential, you're going to have lightning.
And the particular sounds they use and the way they use the lighting to where it almost glares into your eye like you're there, I think really lends to making it feel more organic and authentic. Yes, it's science fiction, so it's not real, but they make it as real feeling as they possibly can.
Yeah, here we see the Narada facing the Kelvin. This was a great scene. It just grabs you by the throat, like I said. I mean, that's really the theme of the whole movie.
The Narada was an incredible ship.
Yeah, this scene here is probably the best scene in the whole movie. I mean, J.J. did not hold back. This is one of my favorite things. You get to see the Kelvin just desperate, everyone's getting hit. They're doing everything they can, but they're just overpowered like crazy.
Yeah.
And you see, well, I spent 6 years in the Navy, and seeing this engine room really took me back to my engineering days. I worked in the propulsion plants on U.S. Navy warships, and it looked very much like that. So I saw that, and I was just taken home. I just felt like I was kind of back.
That particular scene where she gets sucked out, and it's just dead quiet, just is creepy as all hell.
Oh, it's really creepy. That's very accurate, but it's really weird because you go from that scene, which is what it would be like in space, no sound at all.
Quiet.
And then previously you're hearing laser blasts and stuff like that. Now here, the captain is contacted by the Narada, and this scene, it's weird because it goes from action, all of a sudden, boom, it stops, and he's being told, hey, you gotta go. This is a defining moment of this fucking movie. You watch the look on this captain's face, you hear this guy's conversation. When he turns towards George Kirk, walk with me. I mean, there's no second thought in his mind. He's leaving the ship.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he also knows he's not coming back, and you hear that in this conversation. I mean, he doesn't say it to George Kirk, but he basically, is telling him, look, get these people to safety, Yeah, you're captain now. And the look on George's face, he knows this is it. He's never going to see his captain again, and At the statement right there, there's no help for us out here.
And
Get
he
these
knows
people to
there's
safety.
the possibility that he's not going to make it either.
Yeah, I mean, the captain, the only thing he can do at this point is buy time. And
what gets me is the captain's walking through. It's an emergency situation. The ship is close to getting blown up, yet the subordinates, as it were, always stop and stand at attention real quick as he walks by. It's like,
yeah, discipline is like really high on the list here.
You know, can't you kind of let that go in this situation? He knows you appreciate him.
I don't think he's too concerned about, standing at attention as he walks by. But yeah, that's a pretty good point. Here we really get to see the guts of the Narada as he flies in. It's a very spooky ship.
Well, it's constantly being built upon.
Right. I mean, it's a mining ship. We find out, if you read the prequel comic, which I think we still own, you find out that the Narada, spoilers, is actually based partially on Borg technology. It's one of the reasons why it's constantly changing like that. Even though it is a mining vessel, because it's so highly advanced, it can take out the Kelvin easily. Now, here we see George Kirk beginning a very fine Kirk family tradition of disobeying orders. The captain basically told him, get these people to safety, and he's sitting on the bridge watching this whole thing. He's not issued evacuation orders, not even quietly. He's not telling anybody to get to the shuttles.
Well, he just found out he's been made captain. He's in shock a little bit, I would say.
Yeah, but I mean, he was told specifically, get these people to safety. There's no help. And like I said, the captain knows he's not coming back. He's just here to buy time. And there's Eric Bana. First time I've ever seen him.
Excellent.
Yeah, great job he
in
did.
this. Well, the only other thing I know Eric Bana did was when they redid the Hulk movie.
Yeah, he was Bruce Banner in that.
Yes, he played Bruce Banner.
Which I never saw.
Neither did I, but I loved him in this.
Yeah, he did a great job in this. And here we're finding out that the Narada is actually from the future. I mean, they never specifically say it, but in fact, he's just asking right there, what star date am I in?
Yeah,
and
it's kind of
obvious.
Him
confused. Where are you from? And then here's the end of it. This scene kind of disappointed me a little. I was kind of hoping the captain would put up more of a fight. I mean, even though we know he was going to get killed in that scene, I'd like to see him try and struggle a little bit more. I hear the Kelvin's firing again. Well, in a real life situation, if someone comes at you with a spear, you're going to grab the spear,
Yeah. Maybe
it goes through your hands first and you put up a little bit of a fight. I mean, yeah, he would have gone down no matter what. I mean, that's obvious. And here you see the Kelvin basically fighting for its life. George Kirk is finally issuing the order to evacuate, which the order he was given, 10 minutes before this.
Right. And they're struggling to get his pregnant wife off the ship, and she's flipping out.
Well, yeah, she's in labor. She's going to give birth any minute now, and the ship's being blown to pieces around them. I mean, kind of hard to keep your shit together in those kinds of situations.
And he's supposed to be there, and the stupid autopilot gets fucked up.
Yeah, again, spoilers.
Sorry.
It happens a few minutes anyway. But yeah, that was kind of a disappointing move. It was a little too obvious, but it's one of those things you can forgive because it really creates the Captain Kirk that we see later on in this movie.
Yeah, it sets up future plot points.
Yeah, it really sets up the backbone for Kirk's personality throughout and why he makes the decisions that he makes. You see it several times later on. So, as cliche as it may sound on the surface, in the end, it really is a necessary thing as far as the storyline goes on. So it's one of those. Again, it's that phrase that said, "It's a new timeline. Fuck it." It's just kind of how I came about it.
Yeah.
He just told the shuttle to leave. They're all bailing the fuck out, and Kirk now has to stay on the bridge and fight like crazy.
That's the only way to do it.
Yeah. Now he knows he's not going home. Very tearful scene. If you're watching this movie for the first time and you're not choking up, you're a fucking robot. This scene is a tearjerker. I was feeling it when I first saw this movie.
I've watched it so many times now, I don't necessarily cry anymore, but the first time I did, I mean, this whole scene, I cried, because you knew what was going to happen, and I mean, the actors are portraying their emotions. I mean, it almost feels, I mean, really real outside of the fact that, science fiction, but right. The emotions, I mean, look at the look on her face. She's in so much pain, and she's in mental pain because she knows.
Yeah.
She knows in the back of her head he's not coming.
Yeah. And you really see the tension. You see the system's failing there. And the look on George's face is like, this is it. I'm done. I've got, checkmate. I've got to do this last move. And it's a really touching scene at the same time because there goes the Kelvin. It's on its way in, and there's no stopping at this point. I mean, the Kelvin's a really big missile. It's really hard for it's not going to get blown apart. So. You can believe this is going to happen. There is baby Kirk.
Future Captain James Tiberius Kirk.
And I love this whole discussion they have about what
to name him.
Yeah. And it's great that you see, the last thing he gets to hear is his son's cries.
And this seems like it's taking forever, but it's really only taking seconds.
Well, they stretch it out in movie time, but I mean, it's tension, it's dramatic, and the two actors just pulled it off so well. It's such a touching and emotional scene that even though 60 seconds goes by in like 3 minutes, I think this whole scene lasts, but you don't even care. I mean, you're just sitting, so sad,
I think that's what really drew me to this movie and the characters, because you get a lot of backstory. Okay, not a lot of backstory, but you get a little bit of backstory on all the main characters, so it makes you connect to them more.
Well, I don't think you get enough backstory on Kirk. I think they based too much of it on the USS Kelvin incident, the moment of his birth.
Well, yeah.
And a lot of the rest of the characters, you don't really get hardly any backstory at all. Uhura in particular, we know almost nothing about her.
That's true.
But again, and I don't know, maybe this is the point you were trying to make it all, but the characters, the dynamic, the emotion comes out, and it's so raw. And like you say, you said it multiple times, it just feels real. You feel like these characters are really there, interacting.
Well, now, when you compare this to the original Star Trek, I mean, they're already working together. In this, we see them coming together to start, which is what I really like.
Yeah, the building of the team.
Yes.
This scene I felt was gratuitous. I don't know. Other than destroying a classic 63 vet convertible, I don't really know what they hope to accomplish here.
Just to show that as he was growing up, he was a bit of a rebel.
There's that.
That's the only thing I can really...
Well, I mean, it's James Kirk. We already know that.
Yeah.
This phone call, I think, is maybe what J.J. Abrams was trying to get at. Where, his stepdad's yelling at him, and, he's calling it, hey, get your ass back here, don't destroy that car, it's an antique. First of all, I highly doubt that car is in any way original. It's most likely reproduction.
Yeah.
But, even so, I mean, it could still be 100 years old.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing that gets me is in the scene, as he's going by, he drives by his eldest brother, George. Now... And I always get this kind of confused because in other stories I've read, he has a brother, George.
Yeah, they never explain that here. We just know that these two kids know each other, and that's it. But
it's not his kid. I think it's his brother.
Well, in this case, it would be his stepbrother. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's his stepbrother.
Most likely, because he is older.
Or they had a kid previously and left him on Earth.
Yeah, again, they never explained it. This has got to be the calmest cop you've ever seen in your life. He pulls up next to Kirk, and he's gesticulating angrily, and all you hear is, citizen, pull over. I mean, you got to wonder if the guy's even human.
Well, he could be a cyborg, who knows?
He could be. He could be an android. I mean, well, no, it probably wouldn't be, because, I mean, positronic technology has not been developed yet. But yeah, this is completely pointless. I don't understand what Kirk was hoping to accomplish here. I mean, the cop's on a hover bike. They'll just sail right over that gorge.
Yeah.
And for that fucking matter...
He hates his stepdad, and that's why he destroyed his stepdad's favorite thing.
Yeah, but, see, here's my thing. The director should be smart enough to not force the audience to draw its own conclusions. You know, I mean, we know that was the car, but you kind of have to assume that he was planning on destroying it all along. Not just you're just trying to get away from the cop, and there was an escape plan gone awry.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, either one of those conclusions can be really drawn from that scene. This scene, however, is anything but gratuitous. I love this scene. We meet young Spock for the first time.
I really like the whole kind of Spock backstory and how they did all this and how he felt to be an outcast and.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Spock is he's half human, half Vulcan. So basically, I think the closest comparison you could have to today is someone growing up with mixed race.
Yeah.
And that's what Spock is. Only in a way, he's actually mixed species. Because I mean, humans and Vulcans are completely different species. Just somehow managed to breed together. I'm assuming with a lot of medical help. Here are the bullies, and this is where we really get. This is where they really establish why Spock is not so well liked on Vulcan. And this may even set up his decision that comes very shortly after this.
I think it probably is because of the fact that he's half human, he's having a harder time fighting emotions than the full Vulcans are. Because it's already been practically ingrained in their DNA to suppress their emotions. And for Spock, he doesn't quite have that.
Well, suppressing their emotions is really the basis of their whole cultural identity.
Right.
This kind of thing it's not just frowned upon. This is akin to someone in our society today saying that they want to be a communist.
Mm-hmm.
It's shocking on a level that is, unbelievable to most Vulcans.
He can't help himself because of the emotions.
Right.
He hasn't learned how to control them.
Well, plus being half human, we never bothered to try and control our emotions in any way.
Yeah.
So, like you said, we don't really have that kind of training that comes with us that may reach down to our DNA. I don't even know. Love the picture of Vulcan in the background, by the way.
Well, as far as Spock is concerned, I think that he wants to keep some of those emotions alive inside of him because it connects him to his mother. And he has a very solid relationship with her. I mean, with his dad too, but
yeah,
he knows what his mom went through to be there for him, so.
But yeah, I mean, his mother is the human mentor, his father is the Vulcan mentor, and he cares for both very much, and they both care for him very much, as we see in this conversation here. Sarek isn't just going to throw Spock to the wolves. I mean, he's trying to explain to Spock, hey, look, this is your identity. This is part of who you are, and it's not something you have to accept. It's something that you need to appreciate.
Yeah.
And this scene here, which follows, again, I think the previous scene really kind of predicates his decision here because he knows Vulcan will never fully accept him.
Yeah.
And that's made very, very clear in the next when he meets the Science Academy.
On a side note, I did not like the costume design they picked for his mother, Winona Ryder.
She looks like a nun.
It's not the headpiece that bothers me, it's the bodice part that's all like just weird and shelf-like.
Which we hardly ever see, by the way.
Yeah.
Every time we see Winona Ryder as Spock's mom, who they don't even name in the movie. She has a name. I'm blanking on what it is right now, but
I don't remember.
They never use it in the movie. She has such a big part to play, which is really unfortunate because in the classic series, she actually had a major part to play.
I think Winona Ryder did a good job.
For what she was given and what she was forced to deal with, yeah, I think she still did a really good job. As for the costume design, it's hard to appreciate it because, like I said, every scene we see her, she's just from the neck up.
Hers was the only costume design I wasn't very fond of.
And Spock's looking less like a student and more like a college prep student on Earth or something. I'm not really sure what this costume was all for. Her right here is, despite your disadvantage, is further solidifying the point that Spock is still not accepted fully.
Yeah, they gotta get the little dig in.
Yeah, they're constantly defining him as half Vulcan, not a functioning member of society. I think that's, and again, this decision here, when you realize that, it becomes very, very clear why he decides to reject their offer.
And the way he says it, to which disadvantage are we referring?
Right.
Why, your human mother, of course.
Yeah, and he cares for his mother very much, so she's no disadvantage. I mean, she has been kind of the brace and the rock that he has helped himself again. And there's Sarek, and Sarek's looking at him and probably thinking, well done. I mean, it's your choice. I mean, Sarek is probably not as offended as everybody else. I'm sure he understands.
Yeah, but he has to not show.
Exactly. I mean, he has to hide it. But he's a proud father, and I think in the end, if he was allowed to say it, he would say to Spock, "Good job. If that's your choice, then so be it." Here we meet Uhura for the first time. This is the first time we really get any background on James Kirk. Most of it actually comes from Christopher Pike, who shows up in a little bit.
And the bulbous fellow sitting next to her.
Great makeup job. Fantastic.
My heart's aflutter.
There's Chris Pine.
Yeah. I love Chris Pine.
Oh, this movie, he's trying to make the moves on Uhura, and she's just not impressed at all.
But the way they banter is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
You're fine without it. I love fine.
If you don't tell me your name to make one up, that's great. He's just being pushy as hell. Of course, he's obviously inebriated. This guy's getting sick of their shit.
Yeah.
I don't know how if it's a prosthetic, if it's CG, but it's fucking amazing. This guy in the middle.
That's not CG. It's prosthetic.
I believe it. I believe it 100%. And it's a great fucking job. I'm really glad. If it's a prosthetic, I'm really glad they did it that way. And here we see Kirk is not quite the dumb hick that Uhura takes him out to be.
Oh, yeah. I like when he shows off when he knows about his linguistic skills.
Yeah, linguini.
Not linguini skills. You have sex with farm animals? Not only.
He's got a great sense of humor, too. And this is really such a Kirk moment right here when the other cadet comes up and confronts him.
Relax, Cupcake.
Yeah. This part here, notice there's 4 of us. Oh, so go ahead and get a couple more guys and it'll be a fair fight. Yeah, that is such a Kirk moment right there.
Love it.
It's totally... Yeah, and here comes the first blow.
And the second blow is even better because he accidentally grabbed... Okay, not the second.
That comes later. But yeah, he actually does pretty well against these 3 guys. And of course, they're dumb enough to fight him one at a time.
And whoop, there's grab the boobs.
Like, hey, bye-bye, back into the fray.
That was the only good part of the fight.
Yeah, this is a pretty smart move here. Boom, ducking out of the way just in time, grabbing a bottle. Like, all right. But yeah, eventually they figure out, okay, we team up on this guy, we can take him down. And there he goes.
They literally beat the snot out of him.
Yeah, and he gets pummeled. But Christopher Pike. Oh, what is this guy's name? The guy that's playing him. Fantastic fucking actor. He's been in a bunch of things. He's been in the Corps. I don't know why the hell he was in that movie.
I like the Corps.
Yeah, I know you do. I, Robot, he did a great job in that. 8 Below, loved him in that too. He played he
was excellent.
The scientist.
And I suddenly can't remember his name either. I'd have to look it up.
I left the DVD thing all way over by the TV.
Yeah.
Funny thing is we get more background on Kirk in this little bit here than we do in the entire rest of the movie.
Pretty much.
Which is a bit of a shame. I would really like to have known more about Kirk's past. Well, about all the characters' past, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Especially now, again, it's a new timeline, so things are subtly different. We learned quite a bit about Spock, and we learned a bit about Kirk. Uhura, we know almost nothing. Bones, we know almost nothing. Chekhov, Sulu, we know nothing. Scotty, we learn a little bit about. They find him later.
Yeah.
But if it was going to be one disappointment, and there's very few disappointments in this movie, but that was probably the biggest one. So we really didn't learn more about these characters' back history and backstory, and I really think that was a lost opportunity.
I think as far as like I was saying, between this one and the original series, you at least in this get a little bit more backstory on all the characters. But only a little bit.
Well, I disagree. I mean, it's different because in the classic series, James Kirk, his father actually lives for quite a while. In fact, I think, if I remember correctly, there's even an episode of the 2 of them together.
I haven't seen all of them.
Yeah. So the backstory is actually very, very different. So that's another reason why I wish there was more backstory here, because it is a new timeline. So many things are different. I would really like to know what kind of creative changes they made to the backstory of these characters. Um, and you can easily see how it contributes to the difference in personalities. Kirk was always, quite aggressive. He was always quick on the trigger and ready for a fight. We gleaned that from the classic series, and J.J. Abrams took that to the nth degree, and he really explained it by Kirk's father not being around. Um, we see that a lot. Here he's staring at the broken model of the Kelvin. It's something that's haunted him.
Yeah.
You know.
Maybe he doesn't feel that he can live up to his father's reputation. That's why he's never bothered to do anything.
It's possible. You may feel a little bit of resentment. Why didn't you just get off the ship? You could have done something, blah, blah, blah. I mean, growing up as a kid, you weren't there. You don't understand. And I'm sure everybody and their mother has told him the story over and over again. But when you're a kid who misses his father, and here we see the Enterprise and the construction
being built, which is awesome.
Fucking scene. Amazing.
They need to build one in real life.
In reality, the Enterprise was actually built in orbit in the classic series. But again, this is where the phrase comes in. Fuck it, it's a new timeline.
Yeah.
And it's a great fucking scene. I mean, Kirk sees it and he comes riding out. I love this part here where he's pulling into the space yard.
Again, with the motorcycle.
Again, being in the Navy, this is what the shipyards would look like.
A big mess?
Yeah, pipes and equipment, and there's no trees, there's dirt everywhere. Half the roads are
wandering around.
Yeah, they're all dirty, and everyone's wearing coveralls, like half covered with grease. Like this poor guy just got a brand new motorcycle. He's so happy. Man. You see the shuttles all beat to hell. But yeah, in the shipyards, when we had to get the ships put back together, that's what the shipyards look like. Yeah, so I'm really wondering if JJ got some help from the Navy. Little clearance.
I love that.
Yeah, pay attention where you're going. I love this scene here. Yeah, these guys. And it's the same guys you got into a fight with.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see them again later in the movie. And then another great scene coming up here where we meet Leonard McCoy for the first time. I almost said James McCoy.
Bones.
Yeah, and there's Uhura again. Yeah, we got that first name. And you're not going to.
And the guy they have playing Bones, I don't think Carl Urban. I don't think they could have gotten anyone better.
No.
For that part.
They nailed it. He nailed it. He pulled it off.
He embodied it.
Yeah, this is a great part here where the lady's basically threatening to throw him off. He's like, all right, fine. Sit down.
I might throw up on you. I love that one.
Kirk gets him back for it too later on.
Oh yeah.
This is great. He's going to list of diseases you can suffer in space, and it's like,
out of all the characters, all the people they picked to play these characters, I think Carl Urban nailed Bones the best. He was closest to the original attitude that DeForest Kelley had when he played Bones. I don't think you could have gotten anyone better to do it.
I think he even really looks like DeForest Kelley in a way.
He does a little bit, but better.
Yeah, well, my tastes are different. But yeah, the costume, is not in that scene. He's not clean shaven, but he has that same kind of rugged frontier look that DeForest brought to the crew. 3 years later. Now, if you recall correctly, the 3 years was the time frame Kirk said that he would become officer.
Right.
So kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy here. We have the Narada back, fully repaired after the Kelvin slammed into it. Not something that was very well explained. Big deleted scene in this. Spoilers. Captain Nero, who we're looking at now, was actually in a Klingon prison camp for this time. And
that's right, which was explained in the comic book that I got.
Exactly, that's where we get that from. So that explains the 25-year gap. So after the Kelvin incident, the Narada, of course, is never seen again. and then boom, pops up again. Well,
I just
Nero
assumed
had been
they
captured.
were. I just assumed that they've been flying around for 25 years waiting.
Yeah, I
mean, that's the impression you get.
Yeah, I didn't really give it a whole lot of thought either, which is strange for me. And here we see the second ship coming. This
Spock ship.
Yeah, if you remember right, this is the ship that they were asking Captain the Kelvin about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and they kind of hint at it actually in a little bit. I think in this scene coming up here, we're at Starfleet Academy in San Francisco. I always loved that Starfleet Academy was based in San Francisco, which I happen to live not too far from. In fact, if I remember right, this was filmed in Golden Gate Park. I think I remember hearing something about that. I'm sure someone is listening to this right now and screaming out the correct answer. Great fanboy scene here. Not just, a hot chick in her underwear, but, green-skinned hot chick. I mean, anyone who's a fan of the classic Trek remembers the last time Kirk and a green-skinned girl got together.
Yeah, and isn't there something about them that men can't help themselves?
They're Orion slave girls, actually. Yeah. So basically, they're trained throughout life to be, servicemen. Now, this is the part I was talking about. Who was talking about the distress signal from the Klingons? So I think they say something in the neighborhood of 40 ships get blown up. That was done by the Narada. Again, in the movie, not explained, but the comic book that you have.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend all of you, if you don't have it, buy it. Whether you've seen this movie or not, because it explains so much. This is Gregor's possibly breathing. It's so appropriate to see Kirk in a room full of women in their underwear. And what's hilarious is he runs out the front door, still in his underwear. He doesn't even bother to try and get dressed.
Oh, he doesn't care.
Yeah. Iconic scene right here. We hear about it originally in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. This is where it actually gets played out. This is the Kobayashi Maru scenario. And Kirk somehow finds a way to save the ship, which is supposed to not be possible. And it's kind of funny watching him just sitting there smiling.
Oh yeah, the little attitude.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay.
Yeah, he's just so cocky, But he's got it all planned out. I mean, if he's alert medical. I mean, he's going step by step down what he's supposed to be doing here.
It's classic Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
He's just like, I know what I'm doing. It's gonna work.
Yeah, hang tight.
Don't worry.
Actually, I don't know, fire back, and here we see the whole thing glitch. And then we find the whole secret to the scenario. Yeah, it all comes back online.
It's kind of obvious, though. I think.
Well, it would have been either way, because, I mean, what he did to the computer, I mean, that's not supposed to happen. The people who are watching, the administrators, they've seen this scenario, I don't know how many times, they're going to memorize, they know everything that's supposed to happen. As soon as something goes wrong, boom, they're going to spot it. So whether or not you have all the screens going out, you would have gotten busted. I think it was a little gratuitous, but, I mean, that's J.J. Abrams. There he is, blustering, and now, this right here was probably kind of a departure from the original Kirk, but it's the new Kirk.
A little.
Again, it's that phrase that you're going to hear it so many times. It's a new timeline. Fuck it. And we see Spock. Why he was in charge of the whole thing has yet to be explained. This is also a departure from the original. If you remember Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Kirk was actually given a commendation for his solution. And here he's on trial.
It's been so long since we've seen it, I don't recall. So
I've seen it so many times.
I'd have to watch it again.
But, yeah. But once again, it's a new timeline. Fuck it.
I've never even considered it being a new timeline, just an updated version for a new generation.
Well, if that was the case, Leonard Nimoy wouldn't be in it. And they actually, J.J. Abrams actually goes to quite a bit of length to explain it later on. because Nero and Spock have come back in time, and that has altered history, and so we have a brand new timeline. Honestly, Kirk going on trial and being accused of cheater for what he did makes a lot more sense than him getting a medal. So in that, it's more than just kind of a new timeline here. It's like, you know what, this actually makes more sense.
He thinks he's getting a medal because he thinks he was being smart, and being able to find a workaround, so to speak, for this test.
Right.
He didn't consider it cheating.
Well, I mean, he figures the test is a cheat, so it, in a way, the people that made it kind of have it coming.
And it can be considered that way.
Well, I mean, the idea is to, give a Starfleet captain a no-win scenario where they can't possibly succeed. Everyone's going to die, and then see how they handle it.
And they have to learn failure.
Right. Well, it's more than learning with failure. It's dealing with the death of your crew. Because the Kobayashi Maru scenario, as written, the captain is the sole survivor.
Yeah.
And so the idea is to test their reaction to that. Kirk figures that kind of scenario is unrealistic, despite the fact, really his father was actually in the reverse position. There were several casualties in the Kelvin, the poor girl getting sucked out the hole. But in the end, he sacrificed himself to save everybody else. So Kirk may even use that as kind of justification as to why he feels the Kobayashi Maru test is really irrelevant. And the Kobayashi Maru test never really sat well with me either. It's like, why? How could a simulation really bring out those kinds of feelings in anyone, no matter how well programmed?
It can't, and you don't see those feelings in him, and it doesn't finally hit him until the second movie. Then you see it. Then he becomes the captain he was really meant to be. It's a learning curve.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end, the first time we see the Kobayashi Maru test, again, this is going back to Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Kirstie Alley as Saavik.
Yeah.
First thing she says is, the test wasn't fair. But yeah, and really that's, I think, the most realistic response that you're going to get out of a cadet in a simulator. In a real-life situation where the captain is the only one who survives or they're facing death, the captain doesn't get to walk off the bridge to their administrator and say, this was unfair, can I get a redo? You die, or maybe you live. And how can you get that in a simulator? I don't really understand it.
And then here you have Spock and Uhura, where you get this little sense that there's a little something there between them, which is never actually explained.
It is in the end of the movie.
At the end of the movie.
Yeah. And what's really great is this was something, actually, that I missed. I don't know if it's because I haven't watched the classic series in so long, but in the classic series as well, Uhura and Spock had an emotional connection between the two of them. Uhura, at the very least, had romantic feelings towards Spock, and you could see Spock sort of struggle with those feelings. He didn't, it's against his Vulcan training to act on them.
I did not know that. I thought that was a whole new thing they did for this.
Yeah, no, it's actually right. It's an homage to the original Trek. It's something that is actually accurate.
Interesting. Well, I haven't seen all the original Trek, so.
Yeah. Well, I think it was probably done away with because the original Trek came out in I think 1963, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I'd be very ashamed of myself if I got that wrong. But I mean, the 60s, the early 60s were the height of the civil rights movement. Segregation was still very much in play. And you got a nationally syndicated television show playing everywhere, including places where people were thinking of black people. You got white people thinking of black people, second-class citizens. You see Leonard Nimoy and Nichelle Nichols, two opposite race people in a romantic relationship. They're going to lose their shit.
Now this is a great scene, going, straying off of that topic. Them seeing all the starships docked and ready to go. I mean, what an incredible view.
Oh yeah, very dramatic, very intense. You see the Starship Enterprise for the first time. Great scene.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it's, like you say, I mean, this is fiction, but really this is kind of realistic. You almost kind of expect us to see the Enterprise like this, especially hooked up to space dock, which J.J. Abrams completely redesigned. And I have to admit, I like this version better. Again, it's more like what I think you would expect a space station to be. The original Space Dock 1, I think, was something to the tune of like 10 kilometers in length, which, if I remember right, works out to about 7-something miles. And having something that big in orbit around Earth, I mean, the amount of resources and time it would take to actually create it would be just insane.
And I love the way that they kind of redesigned the deck.
The bridge here,
The bridge, sorry.
Oh yeah, I mean, brand new bridge. Old uniforms though, that bugged me.
I like the uniforms.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's something really kind of classic, but at the same time, I mean, you've got everything else redesigned. The Enterprise is basically a sleeker, more high-tech version of itself, but they've got the classic uniform. I mean, it just doesn't fit.
But the shape of the ship is still reminiscent of all the original ones.
Not really. It harkens more to the movie versions than the classic TV versions, which again also makes a little bit more sense. But at the same time, even in the movie versions, they redesigned the uniforms. I mean, they redesigned the uniforms I don't know how many times, going from the classic movies all the way through the next gen movies.
And here goes everyone to warp except the Enterprise.
This is hilarious.
Just the look on his face.
Yeah, they're all looking at him. And this scene has a great duality to it because, I mean, it's great comedy. I mean, it's you got a brand new ensign at the helm. He skipped a step.
Did you leave the parking brake?
Yeah, parking brake on, and Spock asked him, did you disengage the external inertial damper, I think is what he said.
Yeah.
Which basically would be the parking brake.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you have to point out the duality of the scene. I mean, it's funny, it's silly, it's great for that. Yeah. But at the same time, without that happening, without Sulu screwing that up, the rest of this movie does not exist. Because if you recall, there's a time delay between when the Enterprise gets there and the rest of the fleet gets there. And during that time delay, the rest of the fleet gets annihilated. Had the Enterprise showed up at the same time, it simply would have been another casualty of the battle.
And in the meantime, we have comic relief in the form of passed out Captain Kirk. I mean, he's not Captain yet, but when he comes around to, it's just so funny.
Pavlicek. Another great pick was this kid right here. I almost said little kid. It's not. He just looks little.
Well,
but he did a
he
great
said he was
job.
19, so he's young.
Yeah. But again, we've got no real background on him. I think we kind of have to assume that the characters we don't get background on, their backstories don't change from the classic series. That's something I can really kind of guess.
Yeah, because they figured that all the older Trekkies
already know all that, yeah. This is a great part here. He's giving the announcement, and everyone's watching. He talks about, of course, a lightning storm in space. And then, soon after this, we flash to sickbay, and Kirk wakes up. And
he hears it.
Yeah, he hears it, and then that jogs his memory. And then we get, there's Kirk waking up now. It's like, ugh. Oh, Jim. This is pretty hilarious. Holy cow, huh? And he looks at his hands. Holy crap! But again, lots of sort of silliness mixed in.
And I like how Bones keeps saying, I can fix that. Yeah. I can fix that.
Well, again, it's great because, you got this hilarious stuff going on, and you have this drama to say, we gotta stop the ship! He's blasting through the hallways, and, but, it's great how J.J. really mixed up the sort of the comedy and the drama and the action, and it all flows together seamlessly. That's the best part about it. This scene, as silly and hilarious as it is, when he gets to the bridge, and here when he's talking to Uhura, he's asking about it. We get some laughs, but there's something more serious.
This is probably like the funniest little part in the whole movie.
Yeah. I got I can fix this.
You got num-dum? Num-dum?
Yes. Stop doing that!
He keeps jamming him in the neck with the thing.
Giving him all kinds of medicine. He's like, oh, you gotta stop it.
Now, this thing is insane, this drill.
Oh, it's hideous what this drill is capable of. The fact that it can drill through a planet's core, I mean...
Well, and then, of course, you'd have to wonder if something like that could really happen.
Yeah, now here, once again, we have Winona Ryder's outfit. We see it briefly from the back, and
She's
then
got the whole shelf thing going on.
They pan around, and boom, you got her head.
Yeah.
You don't get to see too much of that outfit, and from there, I finally see the shelf thing that you were talking about in the body she has to wear. Here goes Kirk crashing onto the bridge. Everyone's like, "Whoa, what the fuck are you doing here?" And this is, I think, is one of the best scenes in the movie. He's warning them, and again, the whole comedy thing, and it just seamlessly blends into this. And now we've got drama, and just everyone's really tense, and he's angry. He's trying to convince the captain that there's something more serious going on. Here comes Spock, and he ends up getting everybody involved. But it makes sense, you know, when he says right here. He starts telling us there's an attack, and Captain Pike's like, all right, fine, I'll entertain it. You know.
Yeah.
Basically, he stops trying to talk, and they listen. They listen to what he has to say.
Yeah. And
then everyone thinks about it at the end, and it's not just, you know, okay, you know, you're crazy, we're gonna blow you off, and then all of a sudden, oh, whoops, they actually seriously take it in. They think about it and say, this kid's got a point. We need to listen to what he's got to say.
Yeah.
You know. And that's a departure from what you would normally see. Like I said, normally they would just, you know, blow off what he has to say and then show up in the battlefield and go, oh crap, he was right.
But because he has a her to back him up too, then they take him even more seriously.
And even Spock steps in. He says right here, the cadet's logic is sound. You know, yeah. And then he talks about Uhura, you know, because he knows her skills. Like, you know, this is a good. He's got a point. You know, we really need to think about what he's saying. And Christopher Pike takes it under advisement and he's like, all right, let's do this. It's, you know. We're going to assume we're marching into a war zone, and he starts getting everybody together, and he has Uhura get on the comms listening for Romulans, and then I think he even calls the ship to red alert. They hear how the evidence starts pouring in, and say, uh-oh. This is just confirmation of what basically they already accepted. Yeah, what they've already decided to accept as truth, and then the evidence confirms it. All right, red alert, let's get ready to rock and roll. Now this is a very controversial scene coming up here. If you decide to stop and go sort of freeze frame, one of these scenes, I'm not sure which one. I think it was the first one where they just come out into the debris field. It may even be this one here. R2-D2's floating in the background someplace.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You really got to look for it. I've seen the pictures, the stills. Somebody actually took their time to surf through all of this. Yeah, Enterprise doing a nice barrel roll.
That's funny.
Which is really cool because the Enterprise could totally do that. I mean, they're in space. And you actually see the thrusters when they're diving down underneath this thing. You see the thrusters go off. There's a little bit of contact there. Some deck plates go flying.
What's amazing is that they're able to maneuver through all of that debris. I mean, there's so much of it.
And then boom, there's an errata. They hear it, destroy it, and they go firing off. Here comes the weapons, and you can see the Enterprise. Boom! Big hit right there.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone goes flying. And this is the oh shit moment that made Star Trek just so classic. I mean, at every episode there comes a point where you get the feeling they're just like fuck.
You know what?
And that's that moment. It's like, give me Starfleet command. It's like, we don't have any communications. Oh, shit. What are we going to do now?
You know what gets me is the scene just prior to this when they're saying about the torpedoes. You have this high-tech, futuristic ship, yet the men are still loading the torpedoes into the thing.
Well, torpedoes are only, like, they're showing them as, like, 6 inches in diameter. I mean, they can't weigh that much. But yeah, I mean, you kind of got a point. It's like you really don't have a higher tech way of loading these things. And for that matter, it looks like they're in the engine room. The torpedo bays are above the main body of the ship where the engine bay is. So where and they're facing outwards. I mean, the torpedo launchers go forward. I mean, where are those things going to? What kind of complex, mechanism do you have that's transporting these things from engineering all the way up to the torpedo bay? And for that matter, if it's that high-tech and complicated, why not just have an autoloader from wherever they are?
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of just people... Yeah, I totally get what you're saying there. It just doesn't make any sense.
I always like that when Nero comes on the screen, he's so polite.
Well, he's just casual.
Hello, Christopher.
Yeah,
Or, I'm Nero.
Yeah, that was great because you got... Christopher here,
it's
military,
so unexpected.
Discipline, yeah, and then you got Captain Nero, who's a miner. Oh, hi, how you doing?
And then we have our deja vu when he tells him to come with me, and he's planning on going on the ship.
Except that this time they know for sure that the Enterprise is not the primary target.
Yeah.
So Pike is able to come up with a plan. And unlike the captain of the Kelvin, who, think about it. You've got the Enterprise, and again, great shot showing you, everybody like going right side up to upside down, and it totally looks normal. But unlike the Kelvin, the Enterprise is much bigger, it has much better resources, it can take a lot more damage. The Kelvin was already crippled to the point of being,
But they still can't fight this ship, which is just...
Yeah, but they've got to save... Well, again, they're out after... It's not just the crew of the ship this time. They're out to save everyone on that planet. So, in a way, you could say it's like you were saying, deja vu. It's kind of the same scene all over again, only this time Vulcan is the ones... instead of the crew of the ship, you've got everyone on the planet. And so they're willing to do whatever it takes, even if it costs them their own ship, to save billions of people who are living on this planet. And so that really, in the end, that's what this planet is coming up with. It's like, all right, do what you got to do, and save that planet. But I don't think they really understand yet exactly if the planet's...
if they can save it.
Well, not this. They don't really understand what the threat is. But if they're drilling a hole in Vulcan, they know whatever they've got planned, it's not good.
Yeah.
They may not necessarily understand the scope of that the entire planet itself may be in jeopardy. But at this point, do you really care? You really got to stop and think about that. It's like, well, they don't really know what's going on. But at the same time, would you care?
No, you would care about trying to save people's lives.
Yeah, stopping whatever they're doing. All you have to know is what they're up against. Is what Minorata is doing is aimed at Vulcan. Whatever that is can't be good. That's all you really have to know.
Yeah.
So they target the drill, and we'll see that later. Here comes Spock. He's now the captain, and again, it's kind of a repeat of that same line. You're the captain of Mr. Kirk, and it's like, I'm not the captain, Spock, you are. So a little bit of deja vu going on here. And here we find out that Leonard McCoy is now the chief medical officer on board the Enterprise, fulfilling his destiny. And the shuttle's taking off with Kirk, Olsen, and Sulu, and take careful note that Olsen is wearing red. And a great part.
That's right, he did have a name.
Yeah, Engineer Olsen, yeah. And he's great, too, because he's out there. He's like, I'm ready to kick some Romulan ass. It's like, dude, you might want to tone it back just a little bit. And it's cool, too, because you see that, and it explains what he does next.
And the not smart thing was giving the guy in the red suit all the charges to blow up the drill, instead of spreading them out evenly so they had enough.
Well, you see, he's the engineer, so... Kirk and Sulu probably didn't really have the training they needed to put the charges in the optimum place to know where the weak points. An engineer would know those kinds of things. Sulu is a helmsman, and Kirk is just a guy. And here, this is a great scene, and what's really awesome too.
I like how you said that Kirk is just a guy.
Well, he's not just a guy, but he's leadership, so he kind of knows a little bit about everything.
Yeah.
So he's not. His knowledge isn't specialized in any one area.
Yeah.
And this is a great scene too because we're actually working on suits that can do this today, that could drop from just outside the atmosphere into the atmosphere of a planet and then head down. And again,
and of course,
sound.
Yeah, I was just about to point out continuity issues. You have earlier scenes in the movie where the ships are battling and blowing things up, and you hear it.
Yeah.
And here they're free falling, and it's quiet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
there's nothing. You don't hear them like whistling through the.
Yeah, there's either always no sound or there's always sound. You just flip them back and forth. It's dramatic. It adds a lot of tension to the scene, but it's completely unrealistic. And that, I think, when when you try to create that sort of artificial tension, you actually end up doing the opposite, and it really detracts from the scene. I think.
Well, I mean, when you're just sitting down to just enjoy the movie, having the sound in certain areas does make it more exciting. You get more involved. You get more invested.
Well, yeah, sound is always a great way to do it, but you've got music playing in the background.
Yeah.
You can kill the sound effects and just have the music set the mood for you. I mean, in a movie, that's what the music is always there for. That's what really sets the mood. And these guys are doing the parachutes now, and boom, there goes Olsen, and you know what's coming next. But it's not just a matter of blind luck. He actually is sort of, he does it to himself at this point. And you're like, yeah, we all saw this coming, pal, because you were an idiot.
Well, and you automatically knew just because of the color he was wearing.
Right. I mean, you knew this was going to happen, but, usually in the way that, like I said, yep, bye-bye. And usually in the way that it happens, it's really just kind of blind luck. He just happens to be the guy to get shot in the head. But in this case, he did something really stupid. He waited until he was, I think he said 500 meters above before he hit the chute, and they're yelling at him, "Pull your chute, idiot!" So, yeah.
Well, they pulled theirs sooner, but look, they still could have.
Well, yeah, I mean, exactly. That's why they pulled their chute sooner, was to slow down enough so that they wouldn't, end up doing what Olsen did.
Yeah.
Because even when you're going a lot slower, you can still fall off. And here we find out the drill is manned. For what purpose, or what reason? That has to be the most boring job on the planet, being on the stupid drill. And here poor Sulu gets his parachute shot through.
There really was no reason other than so they'd have a couple people to fight with.
Yeah, exactly. Kirk's doing something smart here, grabbing his helmet. Those helmets are hard.
Because they're controlling the drill from the ship, so it really doesn't make sense for them to be there.
Yeah. I mean, it's totally possible with the technology of the day. Yeah, I mean, what these guys are doing there, other than, playing cards and drinking Romulan ale, I can't possibly imagine. You got the heat vents here. Now, that totally makes sense. Because, I mean, it's shooting high energy, high temperature plasma, I'm guessing. So you would need a cooling method. And what's the best place to get rid of the heat is to, vent it to the outside air. I mean, it just makes sense no matter how you slice it. So these vents, while they create some great drama, there's actually a logical reason for them to be there.
Yeah.
Which is, I love stuff like that, when you say, okay, we need to add some tension here. Okay, well, what can we do to do that? Oh, you know what? This thing's shooting really high energy stuff. It needs a cooling system. Let's have the cooling system vent to the outside air, and that is how we create the extra tension. It's like, yo, that's perfect. That's awesome. And here we see exactly what we're talking about. Sue happens to see the vent, fights this dude, boom, kicks him right into it, and bye-bye.
I like how he looks down and looks up again really quick, like,
uh-oh. And comes to Kirk's rescue.
And Romulans bleed green blood.
Yes, they do. So do Vulcans. And there's actually a reason for this.
They are related.
Right. But there's actually a biological reason for this, and kind of what I was getting to. Vulcan and Romulan blood is copper-based. And when you combine oxygen with that kind of blood chemistry, it turns green. That is actually a scientific fact. I'm not sure if Gene Roddenberry looked that up, or if he just kind of got lucky, but it comes from the original classic trilogy. This is great here, how they take this thing out.
Well, if you take an item that's made of copper and it sits outside, exposed to the elements, oxygen, it oxidizes and it turns green.
Turns green, exactly. So you can actually, it's something you can see. Same with iron. See, our blood is iron-based, so when it combines with oxygen, it turns red. Look at the surface of Mars, covered with iron. Literally, iron oxide. That's what gives Mars the red color.
And there goes the red matter.
Why they put it in this day, I'm not really sure what that was supposed to be. I mean, you've already drilled a hole in the planet's core.
They had to make sure that it got into it directly. where they wanted it.
That thought had occurred to me as soon as I said it, and you beat me to it. Yeah. I mean, the thing was spinning. It had fins, so maybe it was just there to guide it towards the hole. Whereas if you just toss something down there, I mean, the wind currents, who the hell knows where it's going to end up. That thing you could actually guide. So yeah, good point. You nailed it. Hey, Harry.
And now they're realizing what is actually going on.
Yeah. How long does the planet have? Minutes, sir. And
minutes.
Spock is just. And here we have yet another daring rescue. This time by Spock. He too is thinking about, again, the bigger picture. I mean, he's got to go down there because if the planet died, that is their home world. That is their history.
Yeah.
That is their. I mean, he talks about my family be down there. They're in charge of my family. They're in charge of Vulcan's cultural history.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're not just destroying a planet or killing a huge member of species. You are destroying a society.
Mm-hmm.
And that, if you're a student of history, that was one of the things that Hitler did in the, he did it in France. I mean, that was why the Nazis were stealing so much artwork. I mean, you still hear about it to this day. They're trying to get that back. That's because Hitler knew that in order to really defeat his enemies, he had to destroy their society. And that was really what he was after. He wanted, one ring to rule them all, in this case, the swastika. And so that's why Spock is going down there, is for that very thing.
Well, and he even says later on in the movie, I am now a member of an endangered species.
Right. So, I mean, how many people remember history? How many people remember the past, Vulcan's past, all their history? Not too many. So you've got to save those that do. It's so much more than just lives at this point. Here's another really great scene. Chekhov using we find out he's got additional skills with the teleporter here.
Thankfully.
Yeah, just in time.
Oof!
Ooh, that had to hurt.
And he yells something in Russian.
Something
we don't know
in Russian, no idea. I've been wanting to find out what that is. I'm thinking it's something like Eureka or All Right or whatever.
Yeah.
In Slavic or whatever language it is he's speaking. And then Spock is. Kirk and Sulu come in, and this is great. Spock actually goes on to a transporter pad and ducks. No idea why he does that, because you're beaming him outside. But whatever.
Probably because he wants to be prepared for whatever.
I don't know. Maybe because he knows there's a bunch of seismic activity, and standing up, he might lose his balance. So that's why he crouches. So it's more stable. I don't know.
The bad part is where everyone is that he's going to get is way all the way deep down into here.
Now here's where we run into my first problem with the movie. Why, with the planet coming apart, massive earthquakes, are they all standing around in prayer? Okay.
I think it'll help them.
Maybe they're just.
But Spock suddenly shows up, so now we'll listen to him.
Yeah. Say, okay, well,
Oh,
ow, that had to hurt. Assuming he lived long enough for it to hurt anyway. But yeah, I mean, the earthquakes, the buildings coming down, it's like, okay, maybe you don't know the planet is dying, but at least you know the building's falling apart. Get the fuck out! Don't just stand there in prayer. Going, well, maybe it'll stop. Maybe we won't get hit in the head by a giant fucking rock.
What really drives me crazy is why she had to be, I mean, I know it's a plot point for later on in the movie, but
well, that's why. I mean, you just answered your own question.
She could have stood closer to him, and then it wouldn't have been a problem, and she'd still be there. But
yeah, as the old saying goes, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But I mean, the death of Spock's mother serves as a massive, like you said, it's a plot twist later on, and a very important one at that. And so it seems kind of senseless now, but as you watch the movie later, you realize, okay, that's why it was written in. And is there a better way to do that? I don't know. Honestly, I don't think so. You could say that, watching his planet get destroyed, it may be enough by itself. But I don't know. I mean, with his Vulcan training, he might be able to overcome that. With his mom dying and his human half, Now it's personal.
Yeah.
And I think that is far more powerful. I mean, when you lose family, than when you lose, just a bunch of nameless strangers, even as grotesque and horrifying as it may be. I mean, think about 9/11, for instance. Who were the people that were hit the hardest?
The relatives and the families of the people who died.
Exactly. So, would Spock, had his mother not died, would Spock have still had the reaction that we need later on in order to tell the story?
Probably not.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things that I can forgive him for. But them just standing around in the temple praying, that I can't. I think you and I are kind of opposite ends on that one. But yeah, when we see it here, I mean, Spock's hurting. Uhura knows it. I mean, she probably knows it better than anybody.
Yeah.
So when she goes to try and help, that's why. She stops the turbo lift and they get a little romantic, but
I wouldn't call it romantic. I would call it, just one person trying to comfort another.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't be romantic after someone's loved one passed away.
Yeah. I mean, you see Spock here. He's struggling with his emotions and his training, and finally he just gives in to his emotions.
As much as he can.
As much as he feels he's allowed.
Yeah.
But even that probably would not be acceptable by true Vulcan standards. Well, I hate to say true Vulcan, but
yeah,
Vulcan society probably would frown on that. But in human society, it's expected, and so he's trying to do both. And Uhura sees that, and I mean, she's hurting because she feels something very, very deep for him.
Yeah.
I don't think we can really call it love at this point, but it's definitely a romantic connection.
Yeah.
And, she's struggling because he's half human, so there's only certain aspects or certain times when they're really going to be able to relate.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah. This was a scene that was also ripped off from Star Trek 2. Which we're about to see, Christopher Pike is being interrogated by Nero. Mm-hmm. It's after, for whatever reason, Nero wants the codes to the defense grid. Now, as powerful as the Narada is, all it really has to do is just find a sparsely populated part of the defense grid, a non-strategic location, and then just waltz right through, and no one will be able to catch up to him. Because the Narada, despite being a civilian ship in its own time, is still probably as fast, if not faster, than the fastest Federation ship that's made in this current timeline.
Well, there must be some reason they're unable to, and that's why he needs to get...
Yeah, but what's the reason? I mean, again, this is where I object to directors who force, the audience to draw their own conclusions. I mean, the Narada destroyed 40 Klingon ships. It destroyed another 20-something Federation vessels. What do they give a damn? Something had to have happened. Maybe the ship got damaged somehow. Maybe they figure that enough resistance will, if they just barge on through, enough resistance will face them before they reach Earth that they won't be able to get there. I don't know. I mean, it'll probably take the entire Federation Armada to take this thing on.
Yeah.
Here's the part that I was talking about. Well, not right here, but coming up real soon. Because what Nero uses to overcome Captain Pike's resistance to his interrogations is...
Oh yeah, the bug thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's straight out of Star Trek 2. If you remember the little larva, right here, something rather slugs. Did the exact same thing, except they crawled in through the ear canal instead of the mouth.
Yeah.
But they did the exact same thing. Attached themselves to the brain stem, and then they injected a poison into the brain that made the person, susceptible to suggestion.
Hate this part. Ugh.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. This is what I was talking about earlier when I mentioned that they explain why this is a whole new timeline. Is what Kirk's about to say. Yeah, say it. Right here. Nero wanted Spock to see the destruction of Vulcan. Now that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Vulcan's still around in the classic timeline. It didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And so, as Spock's about to issue the orders, which are coming up here shortly, I think he says they're going to rendezvous with the fleet.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kirk's like, well, hey, if we need to be unpredictable, because if they're from the future, then we know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And Spock says, well, no, their presence here has completely altered the timeline. Whatever events they're familiar with no longer exist. Everything has changed. So he can't predict where we're going to be because he wasn't in our past. Yeah.
I know. The whole time thing, we've discussed this many, many times. It still throws me off on occasion.
Oh,
trying to follow it.
It throws off the best minds in the world.
And understand it,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, stop and think about it. You go back. It's the butterfly effect. Well, not that shitty movie with Ashton Kutcher, but God, that movie sucked.
I like that movie.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, like the tagline for that movie said, you don't just change one thing when you go back into the past. Your very existence in the past alters the timeline in some way, no matter what you do. So, time travel is a very, very tricky thing. I mean, I was really pissed off at getting off the tiny little tangent here. For the very reasons that we're discussing here, they're very pissed off at Star Trek Voyager when they introduced the Federation sort of time cops that would travel back and forth through time to sort of correct things. The problem is if you go back in time and you alter something, and you send someone else back in time to stop them from altering it, you are then altering it.
Yeah.
And so you're only creating a cascade effect where the alterations simply magnify themselves rather than cancel out. So that was one of the things that always pissed me off. But anyway, getting back to the movie. You get him off my ship and then they launch him at it. I have a smaller objection to this particular scene because they land him on a planet called Delta Vega, which we can assume is quite a distance away because they're traveling at warp after they leave Vulcan. Warp speed, as everyone knows, is basically faster than light travel. You travel, several factors of magnitude faster than light is capable of. So, this planet that Kirk lands on, we can assume, is a very long distance away from Vulcan's former position. And yet, later on in the movie, in this scene, we see Spock staring at Vulcan closer to Delta Vega than the moon is to Earth, watching it implode.
Well, I never really thought of that.
Yeah.
Actually, the thing that bothered me wasn't that, because I hadn't given that thought, was that they dump him off on this planet, and it just happens to be the planet that Spock's on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coincidence?
You see, I have less of a problem with that than I do with with Spock watching Vulcan. I don't know. It's just my brain works that way.
Well, it's just another plot point because he needs to be able to meet up with the old Spock.
Again, yeah. And it's, okay, fine, it's a coincidence. But, I mean, you find out why Kirk was on Delta Vega in the first place. As we find out later, there's a Starfleet outpost there. And so if you're going to maroon him anywhere, that's the best place to maroon him, because eventually he's going to make his way to that outpost, or the outpost is going to find him.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they probably contacted the outpost before they even kicked him out and say, hey, go get this guy, and then left.
Well, no, they didn't, because when they end up going to the outpost...
That's right. Scotty doesn't even know...
Scotty thinks they're there to bring him food and replacements and stuff, so he didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you got this weird, crazy red crab, scary-looking...
Now, this is a ripoff of this is where J.J. Abrams' Star Wars fandom really comes into play, because this is basically the same as the bongo scene in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. You know, first they got that one fish that bites the bongo and, you know, chews on it a little bit, and then that fish gets wiped out, and by another one, and here we go, you know, we got this big polar bear looking thing chasing Kirk, and then this big crab monster jumps out and then eats the polar bear looking thing.
Yeah.
Why the crab monster would then chase Kirk, who is a fourth the size of the thing it just killed, is beyond me, because, I mean, we're assuming that this thing is hungry and it wants to eat.
Well, maybe he just didn't like the way Kirk smelled.
See, you have a problem with Spock being on this planet, but you don't have a problem with this big crab thing chasing, you know, a small meal in favor of a large meal, especially on a desolate planet like that. Man, you eat what you can find. And the fact that it would be afraid of fire is totally reasonable.
Oh yeah.
And here's the scene that you were just talking about, and then turns around and Leonard Nimoy. Now, it's kind of important to note that Leonard Nimoy, before making this movie, he announced several years back that he would never make another Star Trek movie. And after this movie was made, he said he would not be into darkness, and well, he's into that one as well. So, I'm starting to wonder if Leonard is really, you know.
Well, you know, considering he got diagnosed with lung cancer, maybe he felt that
COPD.
he needed, COPD, that's it. Maybe he felt that he needed or he wanted that last little bit of connection.
That was another little scene we just passed over. It makes this movie kind of fun. It's, you know, it's like, I am Spock, and Kirk says, bullshit. And here we find out that Spock has a totally rational reaction here. In most movies, Spock would be fully aware of what's going on, but here he has no idea what's happening on board the Enterprise. He doesn't know that he was named captain, and that Kirk is not captain. He's not really familiar with where he is, so he's kind of just basing off what his old knowledge.
Because it's a different timeline.
Again, yeah. So it actually makes sense that he wouldn't know that Kirk is not the captain of the Enterprise. It was great little touches like that all throughout this movie that really set it for me. You got the mind meld where they finally give us some backstory as to what's going on, and it explains quite a bit. Not coincidentally, anyone who's ever played Star Trek Online, this point also is what forms the basis for the timeline in that game. By the way, if you played that game, I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, in that game is basically the timeline as it continued. So now, so far as we know, there's no reason why both timelines can't exist in parallel. There are many theories that suggest the multiverse theory is one of them.
Well, and they very well could.
Yeah, I mean, so they didn't necessarily go back in time. They just kind of traveled to a different universe where these kinds of things happened. But, I mean, again, we don't really know. Now, supposedly, now that we have testable evidence that the multiverse theory is correct and that multiple universes exist, who knows? Maybe we'll figure out that this is indeed the case. This is kind of strange. I'm not really sure why they would need to make a black hole to suck up the shockwave of a supernova.
Well, he was supposed to initially do it and get it done before it hit Romulus, but he was too late. But he still did it so he could protect any other planets, at least.
Well, that's not what I was getting at. It's like, how would a black hole absorb all of that energy? It doesn't really make a whole, especially since the black hole itself would then, if affect Romulus with some negative gravity of its own, and then instead of Romulus dying to, here's actually a flash scene. This is Nero on the prison planet, right there. That little scene that we see now. Again, they never explained it in the movie, but that was actually what was going on. When you see him there, he's in hard labor on, I believe, Remus, if I remember correctly, or not Remus. I'm sorry. what was that planet in Star Trek 6? They called the alien. I can't remember now. Aurora Pente. Yeah, supposedly he was on Aurora Pente.
You would know that.
Of course I would. But yeah, getting back to using the black hole to suck up the energy. Okay, great, but then what's going to protect Romulus from the gravity of the black hole? Which would destroy it just as quickly.
Yeah. And here's Spock watching his planet.
Right, and again, Vulcan is larger in the sky on Delta Vega than the moon is on Earth. So, realistically, Delta Vega is actually a moon, not a planet. So, the only thing I can think of is that the Enterprise have done a massive U-turn, gone all the way back, dropped Kirk off, lost all the time that they had made up trying to chase him. Yeah, it's completely irrational. But, what the hell. It makes for dramatic effect.
Yeah.
It would have been better if they just launched Spock down there with some kind of, screen with a camera floating in orbit around Vulcan. But that's not what they did.
But, after listening to Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about, if you go through a black hole and you'll get stretched out like pieces of spaghetti, and then you watch them just going straight through it, it makes you wonder.
It does.
And they both still end up in the same place.
Well, they end up in the same place, but not at the same time. Which also, as we were just hearing last weekend, actually, that wouldn't happen if it was because basically what they created wasn't a black hole; it was a wormhole. And wormholes, as we know, are capable of leaving this universe and traveling to another universe. So we don't really understand the properties of a wormhole. We never detected one. So okay, yeah, maybe going through the center, they wouldn't get spaghettified. The gravitational effect would be, low enough. It'd be strong enough to draw the ship in, but low enough not to destroy it. Okay, I guess. I mean, we don't know anything about wormholes, so it's one of those where you can just kind of punch the I believe button and sort of move on. This conversation is really interesting with Kirk and Spock, or Kirk and Spock, McCoy and Spock, where McCoy is standing up for Kirk. It's never really stated specifically, but you kind of it's very much implied. That's a great line there. If crew morale is better served by me walking around crying, then sure, I'll do it. But, he's got a point, and that Vulcan logic. And, of course, it's one of the things that McCoy hates about him.
Yeah. I always love the line he always says, are you out of your Vulcan mind? He says it so often.
That was great, too. I don't know if you caught it earlier, but when they were in Starfleet Academy, it was right after the trial ended, and before all this started. Kirk actually asks McCoy, who is that pointy-eared bastard? And McCoy says, I don't know.
But I like him.
Which is completely contradictory. It's great. Of course, he only likes him for a couple of scenes.
Yeah, until he really gets to know him.
Yeah. This is great, too. I was totally fooled by this scene. You see the alien critter come out, and you think he's as tall as a normal human just going by the shadows. It's a great optical illusion. Of course, he comes running up. He gets smaller and smaller. Of course, he's not actually getting smaller. It's just, again, it's an optical illusion. But it's perfect. It's brilliant the way they did it. And like so many other parts of this movie, which is a great reversal of I don't want to say reversal of standard, but most of this film was done on location. So that was an actual hallway. It wasn't CG that they're staring at green screen.
Oh, you mean they weren't on some faraway icy planet?
No, honey, they were not on some faraway icy planet.
Well, you said it was
well, I mean, we've got ice here on Earth for crying out loud. I mean, come on. Yeah, Simon Pegg.
I always thought the little dude was kind of weird. But yes, Simon Pegg rules.
That's the point. Oh, yeah.
He rules in everything he does, so.
A great version of Scotty. Completely different. Unlike McCoy, where Carl Urban really captured DeForest Kelly's McCoy, Simon Pegg does his own version of Scotty. But it still works.
It does.
I think if James Doohan were alive today, may he rest in peace, I think he would approve. I think he would see.
Hell yeah.
He would see Simon Pegg's performance and just be like, "You nailed it, laddie." So I mean, it was one of those changes that I think I wouldn't say it was necessary, but it adds so much more to the film.
It adds a lot of depth to the film.
Yeah. And even Leonard Nimoy himself said, yeah, I really like what J.J. was trying to do with this, and I like the direction that he took it. And that was why he agreed to do the movie. He actually worked very closely with Zachary Quinto on this, and he really liked Zachary as an actor, liked his skills, liked the way that he...
I think he did very well as Spock.
Oh, yeah, he did a great job. He does a totally believable younger Scott. Spock, sorry. Of course, people were giving, a lot of people, the JJ and everybody, oh, he's fucking gay. Yeah, so what? I mean, being gay doesn't change anything about his performance. It's just a part of the actor, but none of it is in the movie, so who fucking cares?
Yeah, exactly.
We're coming up on a great spot here, and when they get into this teleport, now, we were talking over it, but Scotty was just talking about his theories about being able to teleport anything, pretty much anywhere, which is, again, it's another departure from the classic series. And Spock, even though it's a departure from the classic series, Spock is actually explaining to Scotty how it was actually, capable of being done. Mm-hmm. And he says that Scotty's the one who came up with it. And when he, his analogy is like shooting a bullet at a smaller bullet on a horse while blindfolded. And okay, well, here's your equations. And then, Scotty sits down. One of the best lines in the movie, definitely top 10. I wouldn't say the best, but definitely top 10. He says, I don't believe it. It never occurred to me to think of space as the object that was moving. Which, when you're traveling at warp drive, that is exactly what is happening. You are, in fact, moving space. And you are staying in the same position while space moves around you. And then you literally just kind of grab the object and pull it closer.
It's a weird, interesting concept.
Yeah, I mean, our universe is a weird place, and the things that we can do with it, assuming we have we have the technical know-how, it's going to be incredible. Hopefully someday we'll actually be able to do the things that they're doing in this movie. And but no, I just love that science. It never occurred to me to think of space as the object that was moving. And in their future, that would be something that is easily overlooked because they're so used to it. They've been traveling warp speed for so long. It is a detail that could be overlooked, but it's also very scientifically accurate. One of the few scientifically accurate things in this whole fucking movie, by the way. So it's kind of nice to grab on those little moments.
Well, you go back to the original Star Trek and Next Generation and the others, which I never watched, but there's a lot of things in those shows that have been now created in real life. So there's always a possibility. I mean, the next big thing, everyone wants, the medical tricorders. I mean, that would be amazing.
There's an X prize. I think a $250,000 reward for the first person who can invent that medical tricorder.
And I think it would revolutionize medicine.
Oh, you even have to think about it. It totally would. Diagnostics would be completely different.
And we could put the insurance companies out of business. Like the little guy, he's all sad.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty good to shed a tear. This part made sense and didn't make sense. Because
they didn't know exactly where they were going to end up. But
that's why it makes sense. But it doesn't make sense why, later on here, why he ends up going into the coolant tubes from the reservoir. And then this is the part coming up that I think doesn't make sense, is where Kirk gets him out. And
that he's able to get him out?
Well, no, what he uses to get him out, which I'm waiting for before I make my point. I want to kind of jump the gun. But I mean, he's been in there for a good 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Holding your breath that long is hard. Now, right here is the main coolant pump. That right there, what we're just looking at, the emergency hatch. Look how much water comes out of this hatch after he opens it.
And why would there be an emergency hatch?
Exactly, especially right next to the inlet for the pump. There would be a valve right there to cut off the pump and isolate it, not a hatch.
And you're right. Technically, there should be a lot more water.
Exactly. So that's where the whole thing does not make sense.
Okay, I give you that.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right as far as not knowing 100% where they would teleport onto the ship. Yeah, they could end up anywhere. They could end up in the trash bins, you know. So that part of it did kind of make sense. And you have security, you know, chasing everybody. And again, totally reminiscent of engine rooms from my ships. A little bit bigger, but you know, yeah, there's a familiar face.
Hello, Cupcake.
Yeah. And then you know he's just waiting. He's like, "Someone please give me the order to knock this guy out." Mm-hmm. He's just begging for that when he takes him to spies. I'll shoot him. I'll shoot him. I will. Just say the word. He's fucking done. Now this is where the death of Spock's mom comes to light artistically because of this exchange that they're having now.
Yeah.
You know, Kirk needs to take command. Spock knows that Kirk can, you know, past Spock, knows that Kirk can actually, with his impetuous, reckless kind of nature, pursue Nero and track him down. And he knows that Spock will take the safe. He knows that himself will take the safe route. And so he needs to shake things up a little. And he uses the death, what he thinks of as the death of Vulcan. But Kirk knows that Spock watched his mother die, and so he uses that instead.
Yeah.
Real smart move, very well written, very well acted. I mean, look at the look on Spock's face. He is just ready to explode. You know, and Kirk is just right there in his face, just egging him on. Great fucking scene. This is where the talent of these actors really comes out.
Yeah. I mean, because they're in each other's faces. They have to keep character and straight faces and have that anger, and he finally lets it out. And
yeah. Exactly. I mean, and they, you believe that these two are really mad at each other. That you really believe that Spock has just lost control. I mean, look at the eyes right now.
He has lost control.
Yeah.
I mean, and Kirk wasn't even mad at him. He's just doing it as a means to an end.
And Sarek finally interdicts. You know, Spock, and just that moment.
He realizes.
Yeah, he comes to his senses. You know.
I mean, look at his neck. I mean, he's just.
Yeah. And I mean, and look at Spock's face at this point. He's just like, "Oh my God, what have I done?" And he looks at her. The first person he looks at is Uhura and Sarek. And it finally dawns on him what was going on. Maybe he realizes that Kirk was doing this on purpose. I think he kind of figures that out later. I don't know if he knows that now. But
I don't think he knows it now.
Yeah, he definitely knows that he is not well, which is why he steps down. This is the moment that we have here. I'm emotionally compromised. Now, emotionally compromised is, I think, a soft way of saying he's brokenhearted. And it's like I said, it's totally believable. He's walking like a man who is broken.
That's how I felt after my dad died.
And when my father passed away, yeah, I mean, we know that feeling. We share that pain, and to be able to identify it in an actor. I don't know if Zachary Quinto maybe has lost any family member. And yeah,
and I'm sorry. And then Scotty's like, I like this
exciting. Well, that's the talent of J.J. Abrams. He takes these dramatic and comedic scenes and he weaves them together seamlessly, and it totally fits. It makes sense, you know. I mean, everybody's quiet and they're all sitting around, and it's all uncomfortable. And Scotty, being Scotty, you know, yeah, he'd be the first one to pipe up. Oh, I think it's a wee bit exciting. This is a great line here. You know, I hope you know what you're doing, Kirk. So do I. You know, he's got a plan, but you know, again, he knows the odds are against him, and but he's not just going to sit by and wait for someone else to take charge. He's the kind of guy, he wants to lead. He wants to lead the charge. He's a born leader. That was why Kirk became Captain of the Enterprise in the first place. And maybe it comes down to family. I mean, George Kirk did a stellar job rescuing the crew with minimal casualties after the initial attack, after the captain was killed in the Narada. I mean, granted, you know, I was kind of waffling and griping about how he should have really started earlier. But at the same time, everyone got out, and he did it. He pulled it off. And Kirk, maybe it goes back to what you were saying earlier. Kirk's trying to sort of, live up to that legacy. But he can do it.
But the reason he hasn't done it before, which is why he was in the dive bars in, was Iowa?
Yeah, Iowa's where he's from.
Iowa, is because I think at that time he didn't think he could live up to those kinds of expectations.
Well, Kirk too, he's a rebel.
Because his dad was put on a pedestal.
Right.
How do you, match that? Do you want to?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to get into. Is when you live under that kind of a shadow, and Kirk being sort of the rebel that he is, maybe he didn't want to. Maybe he wanted to kind of live his own life. And outside of his father's shadow.
But his schooling and testing and personality, all showed otherwise.
Well, his personality showed otherwise. His testing, I don't know if you remember Captain Pike saying, your aptitude scores are off the chart.
Yeah.
Brilliant guy. He called him the only genius-level repeat offender in the Midwest. So there's that rebel nature along with the smarts and the tactical know-how to get shit done. And that is Captain Kirk to a T. He's not afraid to charge in where angels fear to tread. He's not afraid to take on big challenges and do so. Sometimes maybe he's a little quick on the trigger.
And we watch his evolution, but like I was saying earlier, and we'll get into this when we eventually watch Star Trek Into Darkness, he doesn't become the full-fledged captain that he is until he realizes he has to sacrifice himself for the greater good. Then he truly becomes a captain.
Well, I would argue that he becomes that now. The scene that we're watching here, where Spock walks up to him and says, "I would like to be your first officer." Because Kirk, remember after he told Uhura, do you know what you're doing? I hope I do. He's sitting around, and Chekhov is giving him a plan, and he's actually listening to it and saying, okay. That's the captain. He takes advisement from his crew.
Yeah.
So I would say he really is kind of becoming the captain now. Now, he only thing he really lacks is the experience, which he will get as time goes by. Here we see that nasty drill again. Mm-hmm. This thing is frightening. Got barbed wire. No idea why that's there, especially if it's supposed to be a civilian ship. It could just be a consequence of board technology. It's one of those things where you got to kind of wonder. This is a great little maneuver. They stop at warp inside the atmosphere of Titan, which is, if you know anything about Titan, it's a atmosphere primarily of methane. And if you're wondering why methane isn't catching fire with the thrusters going off, it's because there's almost no oxygen. Methane has to have oxygen in order to ignite.
And Titan is one of the moons of Saturn.
Yes, it is the largest moon of Saturn. Hence the name Titan. But it is the only other stellar body in our solar system where we have detected liquids on the surface. There are rivers of liquid methane, lakes of liquid methane on the surface of Titan. Yeah, it's a very bizarre kind of planet. Many scientists believe that Titan, as it is now, with the exception of the wicked cold temperatures, negative 300 degrees in the summertime, is not too unlike Earth was back in the day. Now this right here is the order they just gave Sulu. I think is kind of a legacy of his father. He says, no matter what, if you have the tactical advantage, fire on that ship.
I like this part.
This is great.
What the hell are you two doing? Just the look on his face.
Wait a minute. And here we hear Uhura's name for the first time, and I don't recall ever hearing it ever before this moment.
Yeah, me either.
So it's another one of those things that J.J. Abrams kind of picked up on that I somehow missed. I don't think we ever knew what Uhura's first name was. This guy's like, whoa, hello. Totally just kind of awkward silence, and then again, just that humor that just throws it, and again, it flows seamlessly.
And of course, Scotty's like, you should be all alone once you get down there.
And they're not.
No.
Well, I think the previous statement of this is, if there's any common sense to the makeup of the ship, I should be putting you in the cargo bay.
But there is no common sense to this ship.
Not as far as human beings are concerned, no. Romulans probably think that whatever this is a perfectly logical place for it to be. So, yeah, I mean, how common is common sense? You really have to stop and think about that. And they're immediately in a firefight and are surrounded. And, of course, all the Romulans have terrible aim. Well, Kirk and Spock are, dead-eyed dick.
Oh, yeah.
But, that's typical sort of action movie fare. And, it's like, Captain, we have intruders. I love the costume designs for the Romulans on the ship, by the way. Nero especially.
And the tattoos.
That long coat. Oh, the tattoos look great. I mean, he just looks sinister. He totally looks evil. That's one reason why I loved Eric Bana in this.
And they really don't look like the Romulans from all the other Star Trek.
I hope that was by design. Because I really like that. I mean, all these guys are bald. Maybe that's part of Romulan society that, maybe it's part of their job. Maybe there's a reason they don't have, they're not supposed to have hair. But it's a great look. And like you said, it's a real departure from Romulans of the past. Particularly from Next Generation Romulans. They had, I don't know if you remember, you got your encyclopedia out here, but they had, very straight hair, very close to their heads. It was trimmed,
looking up Romulans right now.
Yeah, it was trimmed very short. And all these guys are bald, and it's complete reversal of the Romulans that we're used to.
Okay, so here's Romulans. And
yeah, see, here's the hair that I was talking about. How just so meticulously cut it is.
And their foreheads.
Yeah, the ridges on the foreheads. You don't see that on these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I think you kind of do over their brow a little bit. It's nowhere near as pronounced as it is in that picture. It's kind of faint, actually. You really only spot it in the tattoos, particularly on Nero.
And these Romulans from the other, they didn't have tattoos.
Well, that, but take a look at their skin. It's kind of a greenish tint. Where here in J.J. Abrams' movie, you can't really see that. Now, the greenish tint actually does make a little bit more sense because part of what gives our skin pigmentation its color is the blood that runs through it. So because their blood is green, it makes sense that they would have more of a greenish tint to it. So I have to disagree with that one little point, but we're kind of splitting hairs.
Yeah.
It's not really worth mentioning in the grand scheme of things, I think. It's almost like, or you could probably just say it's something that's easily overlooked or ignored. But that's another great scene between Kirk and Spock. Spock's like, we only have a slight chance of this working, and Kirk's just like, dude, it'll work. Come on, man, believe in yourself. That's just kind of what I took away from that scene, where Kirk's basically telling Spock, look, dude, just have a little faith in yourself and your ability to pull this part of it off.
Yeah.
And then everything else will be fine. So I know I can hold up my part of it. As long as you believe you can hold up your part, then, we're golden. Weirdest looking spaceship I've ever seen. Why does it have the rotation parts on the drive core?
I thought that was explained somewhere, but now I don't.
I'd love to hear the explanation for that because it makes absolutely no sense to me.
Well, now if you look here on this particular
well, yeah, but that's
Vulcan ship, it also has a warp ring.
Well, it has a ring, but the ring's not rotating. The ring itself kind of makes sense because warp nacelles, they create a hideous amount of energy outside of themselves. So they have to be separated away from the ship, otherwise you're basically going to incinerate everybody on board. And there's all kinds of different ways to do that. Of course, the Federation had these elongated nacelles that were stuck outside. Vulcans had a big ring. Klingons, they sort of did the same thing the Federation did, but they looked a little more blocky shape.
Not to go totally off topic, but when when they first found Scotty and they were talking about
Admiral Archer's prize beagle.
Admiral Archer's prize beagle.
Yeah, exactly. That was a homage to Enterprise, which I guess J.J. Abrams liked more than the average Star Trek fan. It's the only reason it's in there. Admiral Archer would, of course, be Scott Bakula's character's ancestor, probably great.
Yeah.
I would imagine, great grandson at the very least.
Something.
Having a beagle though doesn't necessarily translate down that many generations. But what the hell? It's a funny line. It's a different timeline. Fuck it, you know.
Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah. And then we got Spock flying around to this wicked-looking drill, blows the hell out of it. And then we get a great scene of it falling here. Breaks loose and just lets it fall down to Earth. I don't know if he necessarily understood that it was directly over the Golden Gate Bridge when he let it go.
I'm sure he wasn't thinking of it.
He probably wasn't. I mean, I can almost guarantee that he wasn't. But hey, what the hell? It makes for a great visual. Why Nero would leave at this point? He must be just completely mentally ill.
Have you not figured this out by now? He's psycho crazy.
Well, there's psycho crazy, and then there's this guy.
All he wants is revenge for his wife, an unborn child.
And for some reason, he wants it on Spock. So much so that even with Kirk in his hands about to be dead. Because
Spock was supposed to save his planet, and he didn't. So that's why he's directing all his rage to Spock.
And again, it's up to a point, like I said, that is just beyond rationality. Yeah. And here they are firing at the ship, and Nero's already gotten the warning. We hit the red matter, and he's like, fuck it, fire! And this part here is how come this ship was able to dodge everything? Well, these two ships are both from the same time period, so that is why. I mean, that's one of those things that I don't know if anybody was ever like, hey, how come they can kill everything else but not just one tiny little ship? I mean, you got to think about it. A patrol ship nowadays would have no chance against a cruiser. But you take a patrol ship from today, which has like one gun on it, no missiles, a couple of gun mounts, and you take it back 100 years ago, that thing could fight the most powerful battleship that we had at the time and wipe it the fuck out because it's faster, it's got better weaponry. I mean, all the technology is just that much bigger. I mean, they'd be able to spot that battleship before it even knew where the hell it was. So when you take that into consideration, all of these space battles totally make sense and fall into place. That was a great scene there. You're so weak you can't even talk. What did you say? I've got your gun. Oh shit. One of the greatest scenes there. This is a great little trap that Spock set up. I'm not really sure. We don't really know what part of this plan or how Kirk or Spock figured all this out in advance. So we can kind of assume that this was all part of the plan. I tend to think that in many ways Spock sort of got lucky here. He's driving straight at all the missiles that are being fired at him, and he's not bothering to try and weave around. So I'm imagining that all of this was. I'd like to imagine that all of this was planned. It's never really explained. I guess maybe they had enough time to figure all that out. And here Kirk finds Pike. But, yeah, I mean, there was some downtime between these two. Maybe they chatted all this out on their way to the Sol system, and all this was part of the plan. That was a great scene right there. It's Pike saving Kirk.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's wounded, he's hurt, and yet he's, fuck you guys. I got one in the chest for each of you. Excuse us while we move our cat out of the way. Thank you very much.
Boom!
Kaboom! Nice big collision right there. This part of the scene, I didn't really like. Basically everything that happens after. Well, I wouldn't say everything, but a good portion of the stuff that happens after this. I didn't really care for.
Why is that?
Well, here we've got Pike being escorted away. And Scotty is like, hey, just to see what I did. You know. And this point here, not so much that Kirk is offering aid. I can totally accept that. There's precedent for it. We've seen it before.
Yeah.
The red matter igniting into another wormhole. Okay, sure. I guess why it wasn't just. I mean, you see it there largely intact.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I shouldn't say largely intact because they'll spread out like water and all that. But why it wasn't simply consumed in the explosion? What the hell is that stuff made out of? Water would have vaporized. Any liquid I can think of would just vaporized.
Nobody knows.
Here you go. I mean, you just have to go, well, it's red matter. We don't know anything about it, so of course it would survive. Okay. But, I mean, you didn't need to see all of that. I mean, it just, there's the wormhole. Oh, okay. And then Nero, you know, this is another part that I don't like. He's sitting there just staring at these guys. I would rather die 1,000 times. You know, it's like, you know, dude, if you're obsessed with revenge, you're not staring at a computer monitor, you know, cursing out Kirk. You're looking for a fucking escape pod with the rest of your crew who already bailed the fuck out.
I think he realizes he has nowhere to go.
Well, you know, maybe he knows that, but nobody else does. I mean, look back on it. Everybody else runs. And this is the worst part. The ship's being torn apart, and what does the Enterprise do? Shoot at it! Like, there's a big fucking wormhole being created right in front of us that could suck us right in. Why don't we, like, get the hell out of here instead of shooting at this thing? You know, it's going to hell anyway. It doesn't need any help from us. Let's just turn around and bail the fuck out.
Or maybe just enjoy all the special effects and the fact that Nero bites it.
Well, I can enjoy all that while the Enterprise is, like, fleeing for safety. You know, and so, of course, it leads to this, and I mean, yeah, okay, this is a dramatic scene, and blah, 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 and they eject the warp core and blow everything up, and yeah, and, you know, all that other crap. But at the same time, you know, Kirk's offering help, and then says, alright, fine, shoot him. And at the same time, it's like he knows this could happen. I mean, he's not stupid. I mean, granted, he's inexperienced.
I'm giving her all she's got.
Yeah, that famous guy, you know. Can't push it any harder. It's like, give me options. All she's got isn't good enough, you know. Okay, here's what we can do. Now, this also doesn't make any sense because the shockwave from the explosion which they're about to create here would also be sucked into the wormhole along with everything else. It should never even reach them.
Well, you would think the shockwave would also, you know, pulverize them as opposed to pushing them.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you got the ship being pulled in and then being pushed, and then, yeah, those two opposing forces should actually, you know, turn the Enterprise into a beer can. And again, all this can be avoided if instead of shooting at the Narada, they just flew away.
They had to make sure that it was all done.
Oh, sorry, I don't buy that either. There's no hanging around a black hole to make sure that whatever is past the event horizon is not going to come back.
And here they come. They made it.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
Okay, fine.
They lived to fight another day.
Yeah, alright. End of rant, you know. That was definitely my biggest problem with this movie. Was that whole fucking scene right there. A combination of scenes.
Wait till we watch Into Darkness.
I didn't even make it past the first half hour of the movie.
Well, you're going to have to.
I know. Don't remind me. And so here they are on Earth, and, you know, all is well, and you know, this is actually kind of believable because, you know, when it comes to, you could either punish him for cheating on the Kobayashi Maru test, or you could acknowledge what he did and say, okay, well, that kind of cancels it out. I mean, he did basically just save Earth.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we're not to that scene yet. Here, Spock meets Spock.
I thought that's a little weird.
It's weird, but it's actually a cool scene. You know, I am not her father, you know. And Spock realizes, holy shit, you're me. And again, this is Spock knowing himself, knowing what his younger self would do and anticipating it. He's waiting outside of that shuttle for Spock because he knows he's coming.
Yeah.
And he says, "Hey, you need to stay in Starfleet. You know, you're better served there." Whether or not that's actually the case, honestly, truthfully, really is not something that can be predicted. But it's what Spock knows.
And I like how he says you can be in two places at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really is kind of the deciding thing. Implied, yeah. But yeah, I mean, Spock is really going by what he knows. He knows of his history. He knows what he and Kirk were able to accomplish, and he knows that without himself being by Kirk's side, a lot of that stuff may not have happened. Whether or not any of that is going to happen again, or anything like it, or anything of those magnitudes, Spock can't possibly predict.
Yeah.
But he knows that should that be the case, he should be there with Kirk in those instances. And so, even though he has absolutely no idea what possible good he could do sitting next to Kirk in this new timeline, you know, all of this makes sense why he would convince Spock to stay.
Because he knows that Spock and Kirk need each other.
Yeah.
They balance each other out.
Yeah, very true. They work well. They are the yin and the yang. And one cannot exist in whole without the other. So, yeah, it's actually a really good point. The point, I never really considered how they balance each other out before. I mean, here's a scene that I was alluding to earlier. Kirk is standing before the tribunal. Charges have been dropped, and he's just been given the medal. They're pinning it to his chest.
I like how he just goes doink. Like, just automatically just sticks there.
I wish it was that simple. I can imagine some kind of technology where it really is that simple for a medal to just stick to cloth like that we don't have yet. I wish we did, because having put those stupid pins on, I had to do it before.
I like this part where he goes,
"Oh, this is great.
I relieve you, sir. I am relieved."
It's a statement that has dual meanings, and both of them apply. It's freaking great. And again, the Admiral uniform that he's wearing harkens back to actually the movies. In fact, Jim, if you remember the motion picture, Star Trek the motion picture, the uniform that Kirk was wearing in that, not that one actually.
No.
If you can find a scene from the motion picture when he's
Admiral. They just have this one.
Yeah, he has a white and gray uniform. It's very similar to the one Christopher Pike was wearing. And again, that's another one of those little touches that I like that J.J. Abrams brought to this. It's stuff that a classic Star Trek geek would get, would understand, and that's really what makes Star Trek Star Trek. Again, not too crazy with the use of the classic uniforms, almost a direct copy. I mean, I really think he kind of made something a little bit more original. But hey, whatever, it is what it is. And it as out of place as it is, it does work. I have to admit.
Now, as far as my personal Trek history, I only ever was really into Next Generation prior to this, and this movie is what really made me what I consider myself a Trekkie. Now, I'm not a diehard Trekkie that knows everything, but I really appreciate it very much.
Well, that's what this movie was really intended to do. It was to bring Star Trek to a new generation. And Leonard Nimoy actually brought that up in an interview. It's one of the reasons why he was so excited about this. And he said he even talked it over with Gene Roddenberry before Gene Roddenberry's death. He says, I would like to see someone take the helm, someone reimagine Star Trek and create it into a new thing. And J.J. Abrams and team did that. And with this particular movie, they did an amazing job. I mean, beyond, I think, anyone's expectations, even my own. And my expectations were pretty fucking low.
I've watched this movie at least a dozen times, and it never gets old. It never gets tiring. I love it every time I watch it.
It's great. So here we are, the rolling credits. Final thoughts. I mean,
I love this movie.
I do too. And I'm absolutely astonished. I am blown away by the fact that the same crew that wrote this movie made the turd that is Star Trek Into Darkness. I'm absolutely flabbergasted by that fact. But we'll get to that when we get to the next movie.
Yeah, well, I liked it.
Yeah, well, someone has to, I guess. Hey, everybody. I'm Bromopar.
I'm Wild Phoenix.
Someone help her. She married a nerd.